A long time ago, I was in a meeting. And when I was in this meeting, we were the business visiting the other business. And the purpose of the meeting was to convince them it'd be a good idea to sell a lot more of our product this year. So you can imagine there was, the status quo of these types of meeting is a lot of persuasion and sometimes pleading, depending on the previous year. So this was the first of its kind for me. I'd never really worked in a business-to-business environment before, so this is a great training opportunity for me to learn how to conduct these sort of meetings and what kind of information gets exchanged. But the interesting thing is, it wasn't soon after the meeting started where I noticed, man, if you take out the insults, the sarcasm, the mockery, and the jabs, this 8-hour meeting probably could have been done in about 2 hours. And I started to realize that too was kind of the status quo when a business visited another business as well. But what else I noticed was our leader, Jerry, sat on the other side of the room and didn't participate in a lot of this sarcastic, jeering dialogue for the most part. And it wasn't like he sat on the sidelines either. He carried a confidence about him, and I think while people were talking and side-chatting, there would be an occasional glance over his way wondering, what is this guy going to say? What is this guy all about? And then it was Jerry's turn to speak. And as soon as Jerry opened his mouth in the first sentence, the entire room went quiet and all eyes turned towards Jerry. It was by his second sentence that in between each word you could hear a pin drop. In fact, I'm quite certain some people even held their breath. Now, normally when a business visits another business, they're not the ones in charge. But since the second Jerry opened his mouth, we were calling the shots, and everyone in that room would willfully follow. And my takeaway was, man, that's what leadership sounds like. That's what leadership looks like. Great leaders can be defined simply by the rigor and the mindfulness they have around the thousands of signals coming out of them every second, every day. There's so much transmission coming out of our bodies and our body language and our tone in the words that we choose. And just a simple mindfulness can separate great leaders from average leaders. In fact, let's try this for a second. Think about yesterday and think about all of the signals that came out of you. Everything, every outward communication, whether it was a text, an email, the messages that you send, the calls that you made, the conversations that you had. Think of them all for a second and tally them all up. There's probably going to be hundreds if you actually grab them all, because I'm even talking body language here. Now, ask a simple question next to that. Did it have the intended response? Did it have the intended impact? So you have your total signals and you have your total yeses, only the yeses, because sometimes there wasn't even intention. That's part of the exercise here. Now, if you were to turn the yeses into the total signals, what would the score look like? This is the same advice a financial planner would give you when you say, hey, I want to get rich. Cool. Start watching what you spend every single day. Write everything down, including every cup of coffee, and watch your money grow. It's this mindfulness of communication that will help a leader understand how to craft messages that cause others to understand how they can make an impact. And isn't that what millennials have been telling us over and over and over again? I want to work in a workplace where I can make an impact. The other beauty of a cadence around what your signals are doing, where they're going, and the plan for them is you begin to reveal your own leadership development. That gap between what you thought was going to happen and what actually occurred is revealing the surgical development plan for your leadership. Or you could go down to a bookstore and get a book on leadership. But I'm warning you, I looked on Amazon.com, and when I searched for leadership and management, 750,000 options came up. In fact, in 2015 alone, 4 books per day were published on leadership. An average of 4 books per day. So have fun with that development plan. Or you can simply remember this. When what you say and what you do causes someone else to act with purpose and intention, you're leading. The magnitude behind the understanding and belief behind those actions reflects the strength of your leadership. I call this effect the leadership signal. The leadership signal is made of 2 frequencies, if you will. And these 2 frequencies are often where a leader stands when they begin their leadership career. Now, if everything was going well, they would balance both frequencies in their development, but it's not often what happens. In fact, it rarely happens. I've only seen it a few times, and I call that the unicorn leader. The first signal, frequency, is think critically. The ability to think critically and deal with facts and information and the what, and the knowledge behind strategy and understanding. The second being to cultivate trust, the people leaders. Building rapport, building trust, ultimately understanding that trust is the cornerstone of any great team is how this signal develops. So if we were to put this into a way that we can index it and understand how to plot where we are and where we need to go, it would look like this. Now, at the beginning of a leader's career, most leaders come prepackaged, if you will, with a modest amount of understanding how to cultivate trust and how to think critically. Then the next stage in their career gets interesting because they become a bit of a self-laboratory, and they emit the signals required to lead, and some come back with no effect, and some come back with a positive effect, each one telling them, okay, that's where I'm going to develop. I'm going down this cultivate trust. Clearly, I'm a people leader. Let's do this. Or they grab hold of information and just have this ability to send it out to their teams, and they understand it. Like, pretty good with facts. I'm going to keep this up and roll this way. But what begins to happen in their career is a somewhat unbalanced over-indexing in one or the other. So someone that is starting to get strong in the think critically piece, not so much on the cultivate trust piece, can begin to sound very intellectual, very intelligent, loves data, loves analysis, the kind of person you want presenting and building your Excel charts. They become the go-to. They have the correct answer often. In fact, it bothers them when they don't. They draw their motivation and their inspiration and their confidence from the what and the knowledge required in any strategy. Conversely, that lead from the front, cultivate trust signal, let's go this way, follow me, begins to understand like, hey, this is really working. I'm getting in my groove here. I can connect with people, I can build rapport, they respond to me very well. This is the type of leader, when they walk into the room, people smile. They're happy to see them. They connect very well, they build development plans very well. But you can sense something's a little off. I remember going to this road show, and one of the most incredible inspirational leaders finished their speech, and I think everyone afterwards was just like, I just feel good. I want to go do stuff, get stuff done. Me too. Let's go get stuff done. Okay, but what stuff? Yeah, good point. And a lot of the time, because that think critically piece is missing, they make people feel good, but information is missing. As these typical development plans continue, we can go into a danger zone. And now you have a leader that is becoming unhealthy for an organization. This extreme over-indexing and think critically is turning this leader into something people used to admire into someone that people fear. Their impatience and intolerance with people grows. And their awareness that they don't really have that natural ability with people is creating a somewhat of an insecurity inside as well. And someone that's this intelligent and this intellectual does not want anyone seeing an insecurity. So they develop a dictator style of leadership. They lose the ability, or don't have it at all, to understand if I communicate this, how will people react? What will their response be? I was in another meeting, and this PowerPoint slide goes up. And this guy was a senior leader in part of more of the analysis side of our business. And what he was trying to demonstrate was our financial costs and our labor spends. But the audience was young leaders, young salespeople. And I remember seeing that PowerPoint slide go up, and it said, human capital expenditures. And I think some people in the room kind of went, huh? What does that mean? Others in the room like, is that what you're calling us? Seriously? And had they had a modicum more of cultivate trust, that slide may have read people development investments. Conversely, an extreme over-indexing of cultivate trust can create similar insecurities. Now this leader is growing up into this company or this business and is tasked with more responsibilities, and their absence of critical thinking is becoming more and more evident. What was once a strength in building loyalty with people and having people connected to them and wanting to go wherever they go becomes a bit of a dark power, because to mask that lack of critical thinking, they become manipulative. They use that ability to understand people quickly to manipulate. So you can imagine the repercussions of having these two types of extreme over-indexing or leadership signals in a company, and what that would do generationally to a company over time. Attrition would increase, and it already is. People would not understand how to deliver a message that helps millennials understand, what's my impact here? I want purpose. And lastly, these are the examples for young leaders on what leadership looks like. This is not the example that you want. I think you know where I'm going with this. The balanced signal of think critically and cultivate trust is the ultimate leadership signal, permeating through and getting into the hearts and minds of followers and team members with increased signal strength, with experience, time, knowledge, and the information required to increase it. Imagine everything that I said, every message I delivered to you, satisfied the what and the why at the same time. Imagine I could tell you what your personal stake is because I know you so well, and gave you a very clear, concise message on where the business needs to go every time. This is ultimate leadership signal quality. And this is the kind of signal that will permeate the noise that exists in today's world. This is also the kind of signal that would seat you on the doorsteps of executive leadership for that interview. The greatest executive leaders I've seen carry both of these strengths. That day in that boardroom meeting, I remember when Jerry looked down the room, and one of the lines he said was, "We are going to grow 46% this year, and we're going to do it with or without you. We'd like it to be with you." Jaws were dropped, and everyone waited. What's next? He commanded that room, because as he spoke, there was a comfort and a command to his tone. Before we get carried away, though, we got a problem we got to deal with. The rules of leadership communication have changed. It's not as simple as it used to be. Way long time ago, when mankind first needed leaders, it was pretty simple. Hey, clan, we're going to go hunt that deer over there. Let's do it, because we need to eat tonight. And I'm going to inspire you by leading the way and being fiercer, stronger, braver, and louder. Pretty easy. As mankind got more complex and military and governments formed, the need for critical thinking emerged as well. And the signal required that same emotional intelligence and critical thinking. Fast forward to today, and today is the 20-year spec compared to the rest of time leadership has existed. There's something new we got to deal with, and I call it static. It's a noise that exists every day. You wake up to more distractions, more changing of opinions, fact, fiction, fact that becomes fiction in 5 minutes, fiction that becomes facts than ever before. We are bombarded. Our trust has gone down with communication. So the signal has to be so strong it permeates through that. We got another problem. Our attention span. Parents in the room agree with me wholeheartedly. A study was done, and it was done in Canada, so you can be rest assured it's a little more accurate, that showed that the average attention span of someone today has gone from 13 to 14 seconds before the cell phone was invented to an average of 8 seconds today. It's no wonder we have to say everything in 140 characters or a 10-second video or a heavily filtered photograph every time we speak. But maybe you didn't know this either. Our attention span is now 1 second lower than the goldfish. That poor creature we kept making fun of for years for having nature's notoriously worst ability to focus and remember things. I guess Nemo had the last laugh after all. Oh wait, he's not a goldfish. Well done. I was golfing with Jerry one day. Guy's an incredible golfer. What can't he do? And he looked over and he said, "Trevor, can I give you some advice?" "Certainly." "Listen, Golf is a very complex game. There's a lot of things going on at every minute of the game. A lot of things you got to think about and pay attention to. Couldn't agree more, Jerry. I think that's your problem, though. You've been playing for years, and you're not that good. You just keep showing up to that tee saying, I'm going to get better at golf today. I'm going to get better at 100 things at the same time. What if I gave you one thing you could focus on, and by the end of today, you're not going to be a great golfer, but you'll be better than you were yesterday. And in one day, you can master it. Shut up and take my money, Jerry. What do you got for me? And he said, listen, look where your belt buckle's facing at the beginning of your swing. Now look where it's facing at the end of your swing. This is how it should look. This is how the end should look. That's it. That's all I wanted you to focus on for the rest of the day. And he was right. By the end of the day, I will never forget looking at my belt buckle every time I golf. One day, one skill learned. 0.005% better at golf. So how do you tune your leadership signal into that zone of execution, that area that gets messages across where people get stuff done? Start small. You've got a big endeavor ahead of you, and everyone's going to be different. Think about taking an inventory of every signal that's coming out of you and assessing it and asking yourself, is this making an impact? Is this making a difference? You could do that starting today. Once you start paying attention to it, you're going to find your own belt buckle lesson, and that could happen today. So tomorrow, you're technically a better leader. Once you start to think, right before you craft any of your signals, I have the best interests of my business and my company in my mind, and I have the best interests of my people in my heart, then you're already well on your way. Thank you.